Let's go into primitive reflexes and what they mean. Has a big thing to do with children, childhood developmental disorders, anything behavioral disorders, big time with kiddos. These are the guys we're looking for. This is the foundational one, especially for kids that we're looking at is primitive reflexes. So this first part, we got to just talk about what primitive reflexes, what it means, all right? So when you look at primitive, that just means older. Think about animals and how they react. That's more primitive. They can't control their reactions. Almost like if you scare them, they're either going to bite you or they're going to run away. That is a primitive reflex, not something that they have good control over. All of these reflexes, which are natural reactions, they all occur in this brainstem area right here. Okay, this brainstem area has to do with survival, right? So that's all it cares about is, hey, I need to either run away from this thing or I need to fight it and kill it, otherwise I could die. So like that's all that brainstem area cares about, and that's where these primitive reflexes originate. And they should be with every young kiddo as an infant, and that's what helps them develop how to move and develop all their movement patterns and how to move their head, how to move their arms and their legs, and all these things all originate in this brainstem area. These primitive reflexes, or these older reactions that we can't control, that's what a reflex is. It's kind of like when I hit your kneecap and you kick your foot. That's a reflex too. Another name for it is frontal release signs. All right, people with strokes, some of these primitive reflexes come back because they've had a stroke to an area of their cortex, or this area of the brain up here that we can actually control. It's like thinking, our ability to control movement, our ability to feel sensations. That is this cortex area up here. So whenever they say their frontal release signs, what they're talking about is this area right here. This area right here, whenever it gets hurt or damaged or isn't developed enough, as in used enough as a kiddo with these primitive reflexes, then these start showing back up. So this area right here goes down and helps one to be able to control those primitive reflexes, so you're not always being reactive, or you're not always being angry, or you're not always having to bite someone's head off or run away from them. So it helps the person be able to control their emotions and control their movements, pretty much control their reflexes that are instilled in us in order to be able to survive. So once again, brainstem, that's more survival stuff. Now when we get up here, now that's our ability to think, to control, to rationalize, right? And the healthier this area is, the more it can shut down this area, so someone's not always either in fight or flight response. Let's see. Another thing to note about these reflexes, I think it's important for teachers, practitioners, also caretakers and parents to understand that a lot of these things that kids are doing, they're not doing it on purpose. It is literally a reflex. So if you can understand that fact, that's going to help you better be able to rationalize and understand what they're doing, and take a little bit of less stress off of you, and help with the understanding of it all. What we're going to dive into next is all the different types of primitive reflexes, how we test them, what kind of common symptoms kids have, and then obviously what we do to treat it here at the office that seems to work the best to, one, fix the primitive reflex, and two, make their frontal cortex, that area of the brain, work better. Because whenever we're looking at this area of the brain, once this area of the brain works good, then we can move complexly with multiple body parts and do complex things. And then after that comes the ability to think complexly, rationalize, the ability to do problem solving, mathematics, and all that other fun stuff. So stay tuned. The next primitive reflex we're going to talk about is the MORO, or also known as the startle reflex. This reflex is present at birth and should be integrated quicker than most of the other ones at about 4 months. Classically, whenever you think of this one, you should think of any kind of sudden sounds or sudden movements of the child's head, or even a sudden bright light will cause the child to go into full extension where their arms open, legs open, head extends back, and then they'll come back in like this. I'm pretty sure that's the beginning of the movements of them being able to open up their body after birth. But it is stimulated by either sudden sounds or noises. It's stimulated by sudden movements of the kid's head. It is also stimulated by sudden tactile sensations on the back, also like sudden bright lights. So anything that is new and sudden, it's going to cause this startle reflex where they're going to seem startled and then they're going to come right back in like that. That is a normal reflex, and when stimulated enough, it actually goes away. So think of it like this: the inner ear and the hearing and the light, so like the ears and the eyes, are linked to the extensors of the neck, the extensors of the arms, and then the legs extending. So all of that is linked together reflexively. So if this doesn't go away, that is what you're going to have. Common symptoms of this would be light and sound sensitivity, which makes sense because it's linked to the whole body. Inner ear problems like inner ear infections and stuff like that, chronic inner ear infections, allergies, poor stamina, just the overall hyper-reactivity to their environment, because in our environment there's constantly new stimulus that's coming and going, sudden noises, and you should be able to inhibit those or not be reactive to those. Unless you have this primitive reflex, you're going to be startled very easily by anything that's sudden or new or different. Constantly, you're going to have emotional instability and living in fight or flight. What we'll do now is go over all the different ways that I like to test this. There's a lot of them, and they're pretty cool, and then different treatment strategies along with that. So first we'll go over the sound portion, so a sudden sound that can elicit this response. You have to not let them know that you're doing this, because it needs to be not predicted. They need to not see it coming at all. So classically what I'll say is cross your arms like this. They could be standing or sitting, and then I'll have them close their eyes, and then I will be doing something and then suddenly come up behind them and clap, and what you'll see is reflexively they'll just go like this, and if they do that, that reflex is definitely present. Another way you can do it is you can have them lay on their back, and what I like to do is have their hands palms down, and then once again have them close their eyes, get them nice and relaxed, and then once again do a loud clap by their ears, and you'll see the hands open up like this, and you'll see an increase in heart rate and all that other stuff, which is once again reflexive and should not be there. Now looking at the sudden head movements, or that inner ear balance sensory system that senses sudden motions, to elicit this response, there's a couple different ways I like to do it. Is one, you can have them lay on their back, and with this one I like to have their arms relaxed crossed like this, palms are down. You have them close their eyes and you lift their head up. Once again, you don't want to tell them what you're doing. You lift their head up, and then you drop it suddenly, but don't let it hit the table. Just drop it quickly and then catch it, and what you'll see is the hands they'll open up like this, and that is a sign that that reflex is still present. A couple other ways I like to test that vestibular inner ear balance component related to the startle reflex is we're thinking, okay, the inner ear balance system is directly linked still with their arms extensors and their leg extensors. So what you try to do, just the opposite. So you can have them cross their feet like this, have them close their eyes, bring their chin to their chest, and go down and let their hands rest above. If they can do this without falling, that reflex has been integrated. If they fall immediately, then you're going to know that that reflex is still not integrated. Then again, you can cross the foot over the other way and then close their eyes, palms are facing backwards, and then going down. And if you see them do this, palms up, or you see them falling, then you're gonna know that reflex is still present. One of my favorite ways to test it is called the pigeon penguin walk. So what I'll have them do is bring their toes in, and all I say is keep your toes in, and I want you to walk towards me. And what you'll see, if this reflex is present, you'll see their hands go in also. So they'll be walking like this, and then I'll say toes out. So you bring their toes out, and I'll have them keep walking, and you'll see the hands go out just like the feet. So this is them moving forward, so it's activating that inner ear balance system to tell them that they're moving forward. And if that reflex is present, they are unable to get their arms and their legs to work opposite of one another. They're going to do the same job. So once again, I say toes in, walk towards me, you'll see their hands go in. You go toes out, you'll see their hands go out. And you can just go back and forth and see this the whole time. And that means that reflex is present. Now when it comes to integrating or getting rid of this reflex, there's multiple ways you can do it. One, you can stimulate that reflex by eliciting a sudden noise or sound, or even taking the child and then like leaning them back like this and bringing it up, and you'll see their arms go out and go back in. And you just do that every day and get the reps in, and that's going to integrate it by itself, just stimulating that reflex, and that's how that'll work. As kids get older, we like to do a little bit more aggressive stuff, but you can also do the same thing, just drop their head or have them stimulated. One of the ones that's well known to be integrating with this reflex is called the starfish exercise. You come in like this, crossing arm and leg, then you go out, and then you're going to go in crossing this way, and then you go out. Once again, that is just volitionally activating the exact same way that you would have if you drop a small child backwards and then have them come back up. That is going to elicit the same response. Other ways that you can do it is you can have them do a Superman, which is once again extending the legs and arms. You want to keep the chin tucked so you're not getting the back of the head involved, and just have them do a Superman with the chin tucked and have them hold it for a long period of time, multiple reps in a row. Another way you can do it is the crab walk, which we went over in previous primitive reflex videos, where you're having them once again volitionally use the back of their arms and legs. With this reflex, I really like to combine head vestibular exercises with the back of the body to make sure they really work separate. So sometimes I'll add in them staring at a dot, turning their head left and right or up and down, while they're also walking backwards, doing the pigeon penguin walk backwards, or doing a crab walk backwards, doing an eye head exercise as well. And that really separates the two out and gets those areas working really, really strong, so they're not so reflective with sound and light. So if it's more of a sound thing, I will add sound with them doing a body exercise with the back of their arms, back of the legs, such as a crab walk, Superman, or something like that, to get those two pathways working separate. If it's more of a light response, then I will use light with those exercises, and that's where you can really teeter it to what they respond to the most and to get it taken care of. And once again, repetitions is key. You gotta rep it out multiple times a day, and you just gotta learn the skill. You gotta get rid of that reflex. Thanks.